I want to apologize for being a couple days late for this episode. Um, I don't currently have access to my studio because of the whole coronavirus thing that's going on. Um, and so right now I'm just using my own at-home setup. So please be mindful of that when listening to the podcast. It won't be as good as quality, but I did the best that I could. So yeah, game on.
This is AF Cast, the video game podcast. And here's your host, Malcolm Sheaver.
Have you wondered what it's like to see a clone of yourself, or to have the sheer power to smash through walls or jump through the ceiling? This week on AFCast, we will be talking about the new update for Rainbow Six Siege, Operation Void Edge. So let's first start off by talking about the brand new attacker, Iana. So her primary weapons, you can either have the ARX 200, which is Nomad's AR that's besides the AK-47, or you can have the G36C, which is Ash's other gun besides the R4C that has been long forgotten, and now may even have a use in the game now besides just being Ash's other gun. And then Iana's secondary weapon is the Mark 1 9mm, which is used by the Black Ice operators, so Frost and Buck. It's their secondary pistol. And then her gadgets that she can use, you can either use a frag grenade or a smoke grenade. I'd personally prefer the frag grenade, and I'll explain it in a second why. And then she is a 2 armor and 2 speed operator. Her special gadget, her utility or whatever, is the Gemini replicator. If I'm saying that wrong, then so be it. But essentially what this is she sends out these plates, I guess. I don't know, some kind of drones or something that create essentially a holographic image of herself. And you are able to basically run through. You can't shoot, you can't melee or anything like that. You're just able to run around as the clone that you essentially made of yourself. And this is interesting because you're able to see through the eyes of your clone. So you're able to spot people. And if people shoot the clone, then obviously it's, it doesn't hurt you at all or anything like that. But people will destroy it by shooting it. And so this kind of is why I like frag grenades on Iana, is because she's more of a fragger, because she's a good roam clear, especially as a 2 armor, 2 speed, because she's able to essentially run through without endangering herself, and spotting where people might be hidden, and then if you can spot someone without them spotting your clone, you're able to just nade them out with the frag grenade, or even use the frag grenades to flush people out. And so yeah, especially since frag grenades are not as common, which also changed in this update, but I'll explain that later. But yeah, Iana is a very unique operator. Obviously we have Alibi, which also has clones, but her clones can't move around and stuff like that. But I believe it's the same thing as Alibi's clone is, where it's if you're wearing skin as Iana, then it doesn't show up on the replicator, but I'm not entirely sure about that, so don't take my word on it. But I think it does switch based off of what weapon you have, but I don't think it adds attachments onto those weapons. So our defender is Oryx. And so this is kind of what is described as the polar opposite as Iana. That's kind of what the whole vibe is of this update, is these people being polar opposites of each other. But his primary weapons are the Spaz 12, which you can have on Valkyrie, or the MP5, which you can have on Doc or Rook. And the MP5's ACOG has actually been removed. So for Oryx, I feel like this doesn't really matter as much to have the ACOG on the MP5, because you're going to be playing very close quarters with this person, and you'll tell why in a second. And then the reason that they took the ACOG off was because of all the people that would just spawn peek with Doc or Rook by either overstimming themselves or getting armor that will only down them unless it's a headshot. So it could have been, it was pretty OP because you could have these beefy people that could take a lot of damage and also dish a lot of damage before people even got into the building or anything like that. And it was a little bit OP and a little bit cheese. I think it's also kind of weird that they're like removing basically all ACOGs from defenders, because that's kind of the motion that they've been pushing recently, is just removing these ACOGs from the defender side, which makes sense to a degree, but at the same time I feel like that gave the game some creativity of how to play. And honestly, most of the time, if like in a competitive setting, like if you do spawn peek with Doc or Rook, you're kind of dumb, because I've gotten a lot of kills like that where I've killed a lot more Docs and Rooks than I have even seen people get killed by Doc or Rook from spawn peeking, because it's just all you have to do is turn the corner and pre-fire, and you pretty much get a kill a lot of the time. That is if someone is spawn peeking there, and it's just, when you get to the competitive setting like that, it's just not worth it. It's more worth it to play Doc and Rook how they're meant to be played, which are anchors. Which I also don't understand why people then roam with Doc and Rook, because they're 3 armors and they're very loud. And since they don't move fast or anything like that, they're just more of a nuisance than anything. And they're some of the easiest operators to roam clear. So I don't know why people always roam with them, but I don't know. It is what it is, and you'll never really see it in a competitive setting, which is why I don't really understand why they did that. But at the same time, I understand for newcomers in the game, this can be really frustrating. And yeah, so I understand in that sense, but in the competitive sense, I feel like it would have been better to keep it. So it's a tug of war between that. And most people are just pissed that it's not there because they wanted to spawn peek with it, honestly. So, you know, I could care less about those people, honestly. Like, you people kind of annoy me, I'm not going to lie. But you get me free kills, so, you know, please keep doing it even without the ACOG. And then back to Oryx. His secondary weapons are the Bailiff, and then also the USPD 40. So the Bailiff is used by Alibi and Maestro, and then I believe that the USP 40 is used by the FBI. So like Ash, Thermite, Castle, and Pulse. I'm pretty sure that's who has it. I'm not entirely sure about that. And then the gadgets that Oryx has are the barbed wire and bulletproof camera. I don't really have a preference towards barbed wire or bulletproof camera, or even the Spaz 12, the MP5, Bailiff, or USP 40. Like for Ayana, I probably prefer having the, like, actually I don't even know for Ayana. For Ayana, I like both of her primary weapons. Like they're both good, and honestly, in my opinion, they're kind of equal. I think a lot of people will say that the G36 is better. But I'm also just really used to using the ARX on Nomad. But I feel like for Oryx, like having, basically what I would do is I'd either have the Spaz 12 and then the USP 40, or I'd have the MP5 and then the Bailiff. Just that way I have one thing that can break hatches. And honestly, I prefer having the Spaz 12 and the USP 40. But I have switched between it multiple times because the MP5 is a really good SMG. And the Bailiff is really all you need to break hatches. It's just that I also like spam shotguns like the Spaz. So, but he's also 2 armor and 2 speed. And the reason that breaking hatches is really important is that so his unique ability is called the Ramad Dash and Hatch Climbing. And if that doesn't say anything yet, essentially the Ramad Dash is you're able to have this really big burst of energy that essentially you're able to tear through walls. And it kind of has the same effect as if you were to get hit by an air jab, if you were to get hit by one of these. So if a Oryx were to come up to you and hit you with this Ramad Dash, then you'd get knocked down just as if you got hit by an air jab. And the thing that's nice about this as well is that you can hit Monty with this. So this is a great Monty counter. And honestly might be one of the biggest reasons that they added that into the game, because Montaigne has slowly, so basically every operator in the game, every time the new operator is released, basically everyone gets kind of, I don't want to say nerfed, because they don't actually get nerfed. It's just that there's now a new and more unique way to take out certain operators every time that there's a new operation that came out. Take Ayana, for instance. Like, she is now a roam clear that you can use instead of Lion or Jackal or Dokkaebi. But really, there hasn't been any attackers or defenders rather, to take out Monty. There have been things for Clash, when Clash was first released, there were already things like Capitao that could take her out pretty easily. And honestly, Clash's shield isn't as powerful as Monty's is. Because with Monty, there hasn't really been any defenders to really combat that. Like, the only thing you can really use to combat it is Nitro Cells and Impacts, or someone flanking them. But now with Oryx, it gives you a new way out for just hitting Monty, knocking him back, and just killing him then. And so it's really powerful now, because there's actually a counter towards Montaigne. And that was something that people were getting really pissed by, is that while everyone was getting slowly, quote unquote, nerfed, like the way I said earlier, that every time an operator is released, their new way of taking out other certain operators, there's never been anything like that for Monty. So basically, as everyone's going down, Monty's just staying the same up there on his pedestal. And now with Oryx, he's kind of been lowered a bit more, which I think is also why they added the Vulcan shields. It's just that it doesn't do nearly as good of a job as Ramaz Dash does. And then the Oryx's other new ability is the hatch climbing. So the hatch climbing is exactly how it sounds like. If there is an open hatch, you are able to actually jump up to the hatch, and you can either hang on the edge of the hatch, which is kind of funny, or you can pull yourself up all the way and be at the top of the hatch. So this makes Oryx a really good roamer. So a new roam counter and a new roamer that is good for taking out Monty, which is why I think that, the way that I play Oryx is that I play Oryx pretty aggressively as a roamer. But if I know that there's a Monty, I try to actually do more of a tight roam around the objective. And then when the Monty starts getting close, start organizing with my team to take out that Monty. Because you are able to take out a Monty, still not easily, but you are able to take out a Monty with good coordination. But having an Oryx there just makes it all the better. So, like I said, Oryx is a really aggressive, or at least I play him really aggressively, compared to how I play like Jaeger or Vigil or anything like that. I play them more passive-aggressive. And I think that's mainly because Oryx, if you can basically just run up in someone's face and knock them down and be able to take them out, about when you pull out your weapon is just slightly before when they are starting to get up and be able to shoot as well. So you need to be basically perfect timing and know how you're going to hit your shots in order for this to occur. But Oryx doesn't really have a lot of possibilities of what he can do. It's just that he does these things so well, it just doesn't even matter. So, he's able to bust through any soft wall really easily, and then he's able to climb through any hatch that is open. And if it's not open and not reinforced, then you can just bust it open yourself, which sure gives you away, and you need to be careful when climbing through hatches. But that also gives you a lot bigger roam chances than any other operator has ever had. I'm sure now that people are going to have entirely new strategies. I could see Oryx being used on Pro League, and I can also see him being not used at all on Pro League. He's a very either-or operator in my mind, because I can see all of the implications. I think if they're going to play Oryx in Pro League, though, I don't think they're going to play him as aggressively as most people will when they're playing him non-competitively, or even in the ranked sense. But same thing with Ayana. I think Ayana could be an either or. I think she's actually going to be used a lot because she's really good for clearing out roams without endangering yourself at all. I mean, obviously you have to worry about mute jammers and stuff like that. But it's both of these operators are very interesting. I thought when I first heard about them, I thought that they were very dumb. I'm not going to lie. But now that I've actually played them and have actually like seen what they can do, like Ayana isn't as powerful as I thought she actually would be. And then Oryx is more powerful than I thought he would be. And I think it's also good because roamers used to just be, it's an operator who like just is able to go around and roam. Like there's no actual reason for them to roam. But Oryx actually has a reason because he's able to make new and quick rotations. He's able to climb through hatches. And so like Vigil and Jaeger and stuff, we're still really good at sitting on objectives and stuff, but Oryx doesn't have anything to do when he's sitting on objective. Like there's literally nothing that he can do. And sure, Jaeger has already placed his devices and stuff, so there's no reason that he should be an objective either, which is usually my reason for him roaming. But Oryx actually has an ability that is specific towards roaming. So I feel like if you were to categorize people under like their abilities, I feel like Oryx would actually be one of the only ones that would be underneath of roaming, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. But yeah, it just makes him a very interesting character to me. So the map that they released is the map rework of Oregon. So now the map is a lot better in my opinion. I think they should have done different maps like Favela or maybe even Yacht. Because honestly, Oregon wasn't that bad of a map. It was a very chokehold, or a choke point kind of map, which I understand why. That's why they switched it up. It is a lot better now. I agree. I'm glad that they did it. I just think that there were other maps that were more important to bring in a new map rework of it rather than Oregon. Because even though it was a very choke point heavy map, it still wasn't needed to have a rework of it. But yeah, I'm so glad it happened. And then another good thing that came out for maps were barricade debris consistency. So what would always happen before is that if you've played Rainbow Six Siege for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's when you break a barricade and you can't see through it because the wood kind of glitches into the actual the door barricade itself. So essentially when you hit the wood, it just actually stays where it is. And so you can't see through it at all. But on someone else's screen, the wood might have completely fallen out of the door barricade. And then they're able to have a full scope of you, which means that people were able to see you when you couldn't see them, which in a game like Rainbow Six Siege is a very huge advantage. And so it was annoying a lot of people because for one person, barricades would be destroyed in this specific way, and for someone else, barricades would be destroyed in this specific way, which makes it very unrealistic to how, like, essentially there's just no consistency between the two of them. But now, barricades will instantly just destroy the piece that you're meleeing, and basically just like shards and splinters and stuff will fall to the ground now instead. Which makes it so that way now as soon as you melee that door, both people will have the same exact point of view, which makes it completely equal now, which is really nice. Though it did bring back an old bug of barricades will be destroyed for one person and barricades won't be destroyed for others. I don't know if they fixed that entirely yet when they fully released the game, but I know that people have been complaining about it. So yeah. So now attacker drones during the prep phase will spawn at the location that you selected. which is really nice because then if you know that they're going to be at this certain objective, and you want to spawn at this certain area, you don't have to waste your entire preparation phase just trying to get your drone across the map and possibly destroyed. Instead, you can just have your attacker drone spawn at the location that you've set for yourself, so that way you don't have to have your attacker drone go across the entire map, which is kind of annoying on some of the wider maps in the game. So yeah. They've also changed how the player hub looks, and in my opinion, it was better than their previous hub change. And I do like it. I like it a lot now. And I like how they also combined situations and terrorist hunt into training grounds, or tutorials into training grounds. And they've also, or learning area, I think. I don't know, something like that. They've combined some stuff together to make it easier and better for people to manage between different, like, game modes is what they're called, yeah. And yeah, so it's pretty cool. So Legion got a nerf while Twitch got, in what is my opinion, a buff, which is probably to most people it's considered a nerf, but, you know, it's because how people are. But essentially Legion isn't able to see his goo mines anymore through walls or from like certain distances away. And also there is no initial damage from it, which is really nice to people who are trying to clutch with like 5 health against someone who had a Legion on their team. But since they took away that initial damage, they upped his ticks up to 6 from 4. I kind of wish that they upped it back up to 8 since they took away the initial damage, instead of just up to 6. Because this is a pretty big nerf to take away that initial damage. But it is what it is. And honestly, in my opinion, this is a good change because Legion has been overpowered for a very long time. And he still is pretty powerful because it still makes the noise when it is triggered. And if you're any good of a Legion, you should already know where your goo mines are, so you don't really need to see them on the map. But I think that's that way people don't place goo mines across the map, and then be able to see the icon disappear, so that way they know exactly where someone is if they're coming from like across the map or something like that. Which I understand completely as well. That makes sense. That shouldn't happen because that is a little bit OP as well. But yeah, so I think this is a good change for Legion. So yeah. And then Twitch's buff, in my opinion, is that now her drone will start with 3 shots, but it will have a cooldown system that is like Echo's Yokai drone, where it'll slowly regain its firepower. And its damage has been reduced to 1 point of damage instead of 10, which I like a lot because that will make it so that people will actually try and attack defender utility instead of people, because that is the whole point of her gadget. It's not to attack people, which always annoyed me about Twitch's, is that people with Twitch will take Twitch just to use her AR and just to do tick damage on the people, which honestly wasn't even really tick damage. It was 10 damage a pop. So like it was actually kind of overpowered as Twitch to be able to do 10 damage every shot. And I'm glad that they nerfed, quote unquote, in my opinion, it's a buff, to that. So yeah. So I'm glad that they had both of these changes. I know a lot of people are not, but that's because people like to be cheese in this game. So, so there you have it. I think they didn't need to take away the initial damage of Legion's goo mines, but at the same time, I think it's good for clutch situations or for people who are just kind of wandering around and they get hit by a goo mine and it does all of that damage to you and just instantly kills you if you're low on health. Like, that's not really fair, so I understand that. But yeah. So there is a new elite set for Ashe, which is Lara Croft. So this is supposed to look like Lara Croft, which honestly, in my opinion, it really doesn't. It's honestly just the, like, what clothes she's wearing. But One reason I don't like this is because I think they should have worked on an elite set for a new operator instead of getting Ash a new elite set. Because I think it would be cool to slowly build up a collection of elite sets for different people. So that way you can just slowly have an elite set for every operator. Like, that would be really cool, honestly. So I think they should have done this on a new operator, or at least just made a different elite set, and then maybe make a Lara Croft one for some other character later on. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's cool looking, and I think it's honestly better than her previous elite set. But I feel like they really should have done it on a new operator instead, even if it wasn't a Lara Croft elite set. Just that way people had more variety around for their different characters and stuff. So, yeah. So they've also put in an official pass now for Year 5 that has the battle pass and everything like that. And so this would give you different rewards. So like if you played during the Road to SI, it's the same thing. So the battle pass that they've added is exactly like the Road to SI reward system was. So you can buy either a premium version of the battle pass, so that you can get even more rewards, or you can, which I'm pretty sure you get just by buying the Year 5 pass. Those might be separate things. I don't remember, honestly. But yeah, so it's really cool that they've added a battle pass, because that allows people to get a lot of cool cosmetics for the game without having to just grind for alpha packs. And it kind of gives someone something to actually work towards, rather than just... Because like once you have all the operators in the game, there's kind of no reason to... Like, there's nothing to really build towards besides just trying to keep getting alpha packs to get that one specific thing you want, or to just build up the renown to get that one specific cosmetic you want, which some things you can't even buy, some cosmetics you can't even buy, which sucks. But yeah, I think this is really cool because, like I said, it gives people the chance to actually work towards something, which is really nice. So a few balancing things that they've done. They've done a recruit rework. So essentially this is to make it easier for newcomers who have to use recruit to actually use by giving them better preset loadouts for the game, which is really nice, and it kind of eases them into the game a bit better. And Castle now, this is a huge, massive buff. I've never seen a buff like this in a game ever. But Castle lost his M45 and will now be getting a super shorty. Hell yeah. Like, Castle with a super shorty, I don't know why they did it, but that is awesome. I love it. I love it a lot. Especially with a lot of the strategies that I do with Castle, it's actually pretty useful for me. But I don't know why they did it in the first place anyway, because, I mean, it's not like they're like, hey, this kid right here, this kid Malcolm, he's in need of the super shorty for Castle, let's give it to him. So I have no idea why they added it, but they did. And then they also added a hollow sight for Frost C1, and if you fall onto Goyo's Vulcan shield now, it only collapses and it doesn't explode, and make fire in response of that, which is really nice. And also a cool little buff that IQ got was that now when she actually spots biohazard containers or bombs or anything like that during the action phase, it'll actually reveal the location to the entire team, which is pretty cool. And a couple of extra things for Legion and Twitch that I didn't mention earlier is that if you are DBNO or down but not out, then you are completely immune to goo mines, which is nice. Kind of. I kind of still think that people shouldn't be immune to it. I think that that if people set up if people are like in a frost mat, then maybe they shouldn't be able to take damage from the goo mine, because people set up those frost goo traps that will basically insta-kill you, or they used to at least. But I think that they should still make it so that way if you're crawling towards someone and you were to hit that goo mine, maybe you should still be able to pull it out, but I don't think you should be able to just be completely immune to the goo mines, because I think that's a little bit OP. Well, as OP as it is. And then for Twitch, one thing is that her F2 has now gotten increased recoil. So this is to just balance Twitch out even further and to make it so that way people don't play Twitch as a frag operator even more than she used to be played. So yeah. So Warren got a slight buff where now he's able to have like an activation that lasts 10 seconds, and then it'll need 10 seconds to recharge. And then he can kind of turn it on and off, kind of like the what's it called? Like the footage wiping stuff that both Nook and Vigil have, where you're able to activate it mid time as long as there's 20% of the charge left on it, which is nice. Which is also why they increased the duration of it, so that way 20% was a bit more. And for DMRs, they've now increased the destruction for DMRs to basically the deagle. So that's really nice. Because now you're able to essentially destroy hatches, barricades, and soft surfaces pretty quickly with DMRs, which makes DMRs actually better to use, because DMRs, I feel like really the only DMR that people consistently use is probably the Mark 14 on Dokkaebi, and even then a lot of people still use the Boss G on Dokkaebi. And I've seen some people use the 417 on Lion, but not often, and then I just never see people use the 417 on Twitch. And then, I mean, there's obviously Glaz as well, but that's kind of already been how it is for Glaz's DMR. So, yeah. And the Vector has now had its damage increased by 2, so it's gone from 21 to 23, and that is actually pretty significant when you think about it, considering that the Vector is like 40-something shots, I believe, or maybe even more than that, I don't know. I don't really remember. Not to mention it fires really fast, so this is actually a pretty good damage difference. And I think it does make the Vector more viable than it just being a headshot weapon, especially with its recoil not being the best. It's still not that hard to actually... trying to think of the word. It's not really that hard to control the recoil, but, you know, it's still better than nothing. And so now Dokkaebi has stun grenades that are replacing her frag grenades. And then Maverick is getting his frag grenades that is replacing the stun grenades. And then Nook and Ying will be getting frag grenades instead of their Claymore. And the compensator has been completely removed from DMRs. And I think that's because of the new buff that has been added for them. So, yeah. So there are several other things that have been changed. Obviously, check the patch notes if you want to find this out about yourself. And they've also updated a lot of bios for lore. So I'll let you know what they all are. So they've updated the bios for Buck, Frost, Blackbeard, Valkyrie, Capitao, Kavera, Echo, Habana, Jackal, Mira, Legion, Ying, Ella, Zofia, Dokkaebi, Vigil, Finka, Lion, and yeah, that's it. So basically, just Buck and Frost, and then, or for year 1, they have all of the year 1, they have all of the year 2, and then just Finka and Lion for year 3. That's what bios they've updated. And so yeah, so definitely make sure that you check out the patch notes for any other like tweaks and improvements that they added, or some other stuff that I might have left out about balancing and operators and stuff like that. But overall, this update, in my opinion, was fairly successful. Like, it was, they did a really good job with this update, in my opinion. I think there were some things that they should have had higher priority over than others. But it is what it is, and they did a really good job with it. So, yeah, game on.
Find AFcast on Instagram and Twitter, @AFCommunity, for any updates on future podcast episodes. If you want to join the community Discord, find the link in the description or on the website, afcommunity.com. Special thanks to DJ Augie for making the music for this podcast.